Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I want to talk about Nagash, a character that I imagine we'll see at some point very soon. There has been talk, obviously Creative Assembly have said that they're working on their largest DLC ever. I think that's going to be the end times. It makes sense to cover that setting. While the setting itself, you know, most of those novels were garbage, it did bring in a lot of fun stuff. It did have a lot of interesting takes on how just certain factions and characters work. And Nagash is the big boy. He's very well known throughout the fandom. It's not just Warhammer Fantasy, but if people are interested in Age of Sigmar, he's there. If people know about like 40k and stuff, it's very likely they'll also know about Nagash. His art pops up pretty much everywhere. But I've been thinking about how he could work, how he can play, especially as, you know, we are getting closer to a hypothetical End Times DLC. I imagine that Neferata will be first though, but I don't know, maybe they're just using a Neferata smaller DLC to buy some time, right? So let's talk about that, because maybe this is what Creative Assembly will do, maybe not. They've had different interpretations to what I've had on certain characters. Like, my interpretation of Skulltaker was vastly different to what Creative Assembly ended up doing, and, you know, that actually worked out quite well. I've grown to really like Skulltaker. Yes, including the nerfs after the release of the DLC, which happens, you know, it's one of those things. But before anything, this video is sponsored by Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus. Want to play a fast-paced Warhammer video game? Unlock super cool characters throughout a load of different playable factions throughout the whole title. Level up your characters to make them absolute terrors on the battlefield. Tacticus has that all for you. There are loads of different game modes to be able to find your perfect play, whether it be a narrative campaign, some mirror campaigns, or jump into PvP. And a structured mission system to make sure your characters are leveling up and increasing power as you play. Personally, I can't wait to unlock the World Eaters. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Chaos, and I know that there's some playable Emperor's Children too. Personally, I really like the structured campaign roadmap, giving you narrative campaign missions as you prepare yourself to fight some very strong foes. And seriously, when I say there's a lot of campaigns, there are a lot of campaigns. I'm going to be here a while. Check out Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus today in the description below, or scan the QR code on screen right now. By technicality, yes, Nagash is already in-game. He's featured in a landmark in Nagash's Czar. His husk is there, so yeah, video over. Done. Jokes aside, I will be extremely surprised if Nagash doesn't start in Nagash's Czar, because this is his main capital. This is where his body has been resting. It's been kind of reforming with all the stuff going on, and it's just the central point of his lore. The amount of times that he's been at Nagash's Czar, I feel like this is the perfect start. What I would say, however, is Nagash's Czar needs to be changed. So right now it's part of the Broken Teeth. It needs to be a single settlement, just province, kind of like Skaven Blight and stuff. That way, Nagash gets the benefit of just provincial bonuses from turn 2 actually, because you need to like set it, and then add another settlement there for the Broken Teeth just to kind of fill it out a little bit more. Gives him a little bit more reason just to kind of push, right? And that's where we see him as a, you know, starting Legendary Lord. He'll just start out like that and just kind of expand his influence from there. It's a weird thing because obviously he had to be reborn. This is how I'd prefer him, just straight up reborn, but I could see Creative Assembly taking a different interpretation. Wherever you're playing as one of the Mortarchs, like Vlad or Neferata or whatever, you'd have to work on reviving him. There'd like be a convoluted quest chain and so on. Personally, I think they shouldn't do that, if that's what they have planned. It's been in the back of my mind for a while, but I doubt that they would, because while it's like, oh yeah, following the book, I would argue that Total War Warhammer is its own timeline, because, you know, Vlad and Isabella have been available since Game 1, for example, or certain characters which have been long dead. Plus, one of these quest lines just to like summon in something like Nagash would feel kind of weird, because by that point, I think campaign over would be the case for a lot of people, as a lot of people just play, 50 to 80 turns, it depends. I don't think there's full numbers, but it doesn't go too far. So say we've got access to him at Nagash's Czar. He's been reborn, he needs to push out. What would make him feel unique or make him feel like a truly different Total War campaign? And for this, I would say actually taking some stuff from Daniel, in a sense. Hear me out, I know a lot of people aren't too keen on Daniel, but you know he can take over settlements, and that can be devoted to Khorne, Nurgle, Sinesh, or Tzeentch. I think it could be done in a similar sense. It's not devotion, but more so Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast. This is something which was very much in the lore for Nagash. In the tabletop, you can only bring Tomb Kings and you can mix them up with vampire counts or vice versa, right? The thing here is that in the lore, he had access to the Vampire Coast. It's just the Vampire Coast didn't have models on the tabletop at that point, or their supplement wasn't really relevant because that was 6th edition, and obviously by the time that the end times came in, it was 8th. There was a big time discrepancy there in terms of would those rules even work. So this would mean that you'd have access to 3 different rosters, which you could mix and match. But you'd be incentivized with certain characters to mix and match, like Nagash and some of the Mortarchs. But with generic lords, you'd kind of go, okay, he's a Tomb King lord, I'm going to just recruit Tomb King units. It would definitely give a lot more flexibility, which I think is quite important, and it will allow you to play around a bit more. I think one of these hybrid factions could work. Daniel has his faults, and it's not really gameplay, in my opinion. Like, I think Daniel is a good character gameplay-wise. The big issue I have with Daniel is a player insert, and I just think that doesn't work in a setting like Warhammer. Player inserts are just kinda stupid. So when you devote something, like I'm using Cord here to devote to the Vampire Counts, for example, right? You'd have the Vampire Counts roster, you'd have some administration buildings and so on, and that would be tied there. You can just get units. I still think that you should have to unlock extra troopers. Just wait on that, right? Now this settlement is from the Nagash mod, which I don't think that they should be copying the Nagash mod, I just want to have it here for reference. Certain settlements should not fall under the devotion style mechanic. You know, you don't give it to the Vampire Coast or the others. The idea here is it would work kind of like a Dark Fortress, right? Like a font of power, stuff like Nagash's are, the Black Tower, maybe even Drakenhof too, because pretty much that's where like Nagash was mostly centralizing his power. Those special settlements would be key settlements for victory conditions, but also provide you with some very powerful landmarks to boost up your faction once again. The idea is giving you direction of where to go for. You don't have to take them, but you would just benefit from it. It's kind of like how the Tomb Kings, right? The Books of Nagash, you don't have to pick them up, but they're generally going to help you out. Which the Books of Nagash should just be like a skill line. I think the mod does that the same way when he's fully buffed up. It just makes sense. The model itself, the physical model, has the Books of Nagash there. I don't think you should be going around looking for the books. If anything, just the system of like the pseudo Dark Fortress or whatever they want to call it. The Demonic Glory system could be interpreted in a very similar way and actually be the main way that you expand fully, right? So rather than 5, where it's undivided and then 1 for the Chaos Gods, it'd be 4 sections. Nagash, Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, and then the Vampire Coast. Rather than unlocking loads of items and stuff like that, it would work in a similar way, but its own stylized sense. So, for Nagash's glory, you would unlock bonuses towards Nagash himself, making him stronger and stronger. So this is the case that he's been revived, but he's still weak. He's vulnerable. So you want to be able to get him magic reduction, cooldown reduction, just some powerful bonuses to make him stronger and stronger, to make him kind of god tier. Whereas the 3 faction ones would work in a way of you'll be unlocking your troops, right? Same way as how it works for Daniel. But as you progress through each of the bars, you would then get options to confederate or vassalize any of the specific factions for that specific race, barring certain ones, right? So with the Vampire Counts, you can get everyone. Jumping in with an edit, you wouldn't be able to get Heinrich, because Heinrich does the whole chaos stuff. But you would get Krell, though. He's a Mortarch of Despair, I think? Yeah. So maybe find a legendary hero. Tomb Kings, you can vassalize Arkan, and maybe Kateb, kind of like enslave him. I don't know, he's very loyal to Cetra. Could work, though. And for the Vampire Coast to be Luther Harkin, which I'd love an event where he's just incapacitated for a few turns because he's too busy picking up flowers. It's a little bit of a throwback to the end times. Noctilus, and I'd say put in Diaphin in there, but not Aranessa because she's human. What I don't want to see is a lockout system like Daniel had, right? Where if you devoted, that's it, you were locked off for the others. It doesn't work for Nagash because Nagash wants supreme authority over all the different sub-factions of Undeath. So it should just be 4 bars that you work to get more faction-wide bonuses and so on. Ultimately, that would mean an incredibly stupid roster in terms of size. Funny enough, I think it's actually still smaller than the Warriors of Chaos when you're playing Undivided, because obviously you've got so much of the same unit just kind of reskinned, but yeah, you know, it's a different unit. And I imagine that some more units would be available. We would be expecting some new units with Neferata if she comes before Nagash. Like, you could totally make some really interesting army loadouts. I used to play during the end times, obviously. I mostly played Skaven, but when I did have a few chances with Nagash forces, you know, it was pretty cool, because you could mix and match to what you want. You could get the range of the Tomb King supported by the very powerful melee of the Vampire Counts, but now imagine it here where you've got the constructs of the Tomb Kings supported by the artillery of the Vampire Coast, something that needs to be kind of tweaked up a little bit, but then also with the very powerful melee of the Vampire Counts alongside some Mortis engines. Like, the Doom stacking would be hilarious. And again, that's just player power. It should be allowed. I'd like to see a bar, not like the Beastmen, I'm just using them as an example, but very similar to that of the Unholy Manifestations in a sense, just more campaign-oriented. So it'd be at the front rather than its own hidden-away thing, right? And the idea here would be the general undeath corruption going on in-game, right? So the more that there is there, the more chances that you can get certain manifestations, but also it can trigger other events. You can end up getting the Skaven going against you, because the more vampiric corruption going around the world, the more likely chance that the Council of 13 will go, hang on a minute, Nagash is back, we need to sort this out now. Getting a little bit of an order tide sent against you, kind of like in Warhammer 1 when you played the Warriors of Chaos. The order factions would team up, it was the whole Shield of Civilization trait, I think it was, which, to be honest, I feel should return during an end times thing. I would like to talk about a Chaos end time scenario, but that will be later on in a different video. And then finally triggering this whole thing of the Chaos Gods coming in, you know, well, not them physically coming in, but like them sending their forces against you, because Nagash would have been considered a legitimate threat. Nagash basically wanting to devour the Chaos Gods in this world and the next, and they were referencing 40k there too, but it's just something that I could see happening. Give you multiple endgame threats. It might sound like a bit of a slog, but keep in mind that Nagash is supposed to be god tier. Your faction is likely going to be very, very strong. There needs to be stuff sent against you, so it's not just a full cakewalk. Hell, the Skaven tried to blow up the Black Pyramid at some point during the end times. Well, funny enough, they keep doing that because they've done that a few times in Age of Sigmar now too, which is just weird. But that's what I mean, right? I think something similar to how the Black Pyramid is represented would work out quite well. So, kind of taking inspiration from the mod. It's not really taking inspiration from the mod, it's how it works in lore, which is probably the better way of saying it. Nagash would have to go down, revive the Black Pyramid for a series of quests, and then that should instead give him access, so this is my own interpretation of that, give him access to horde mechanics, so he could be like a moving settlement, which makes sense. You'd have the Black Pyramid following you, alongside just in general just faction effects. You know how Warhammer 3 races have battle effects? I think that's kind of important to interpret then there. So you need the Black Pyramid, which is like the final key to enter his full power in a sense. And I think something like that would work out quite well. It makes him highly mobile. I don't think the Mortarchs should have any sort of horde mechanic. It should just be him for the sake of, you know, this is more unique, this is more his thing, rather than everyone getting the same toy. It kind of devalues it a little bit, especially when you're looking at a campaign like that with characters that you've already been able to play. The Mortarchs should still have their own thing, but Nagash, given his power as a necromancer and just as general spellcaster, he would be able to summon armies much more easier than, say, Vlad would be able to summon armies. I feel like Mortarchs would get some new skills just to make them a little bit more powerful, because their unique skill line makes them strong. I mean, Vlad is ridiculously strong as he is because of the ring and so on, but you know what I mean, right? Just kind of make him a little bit more there. I'd still say, like I mentioned earlier, that there should be an option of having them as just as vassals, and you can confederate them later on, mostly just so you don't have to worry about dealing with, oh, I'm playing Nagash, but I've confederated Luthor-Harkon, now I'm fighting in two completely different fronts. It's not ideal for me. It's a lot of micromanaging with other sides of the world that maybe some people don't want to deal with early on, so that should just be kind of open a little bit. In a perfect world, we'd see a fix the vassals just to make them a little bit more viable. I've complained about this mechanic a lot. Maybe it gets fixed during Tides of Torment, because obviously we are playing Sinesh faction soon, and that's going to be they said something about like dominance and stuff, domination. So maybe some changes to the vassal system. I mean, it's something that's needed for undeads, for anyone who's got vassals. If not then clearly during Nagash, in my interpretation. Maybe Creative Assembly has something else in mind. Now, I don't claim I've got all the answers. I'm not saying that my interpretation of Nagash, like what I think would work, is the best thing. This is one of the things about Warhammer. Everyone's got different interpretations. Creative Assembly might have something really, really cool planned out. Hell, we've got that really fantastic mod which is playable, you know? There's so many ways that you can interpret characters and so on. I lean heavily towards like the Daniel stuff because I think that stuff just didn't get used a lot. Daniel was cool, but it can be improved upon. It's kind of like how it worked out for the Chaos Dwarfs, right? You get something that's already there because a lot of the Chaos Dwarf stuff was just mechanics already available, and then just add some new stuff, fix some of that stuff around, and you've got something really, really special. I'm not saying that Nagash has to be as complicated as the Chaos Dwarfs because I feel like maybe it's too much if you get too overly complicated, but a little bit more always kind of helps out, at least the way I see it, right? My only real concern around the DLC like this is what's going to happen with new units and stuff. There are no real missing Lord options or hero options, barring the hero font for the Tomb Kings, but I still think like a Tomb King DLC is possible. It would be a mix and match. If that's the case, that they want to do just like Nagash and finish off the undead, Spirit Hosts, you know, Mortarchs, there's different types, and then they could just go Prince Apophis and a bunch of missing Tomb King stuff. There's not really anything missing across the line unless something gets really, really interesting with Games Workshop and Creative Assembly working together where it's like, okay, you're going to get like 2 or 3 units for the Vampire Counts, 2 or 3 units for the Tomb Kings, and then here's some brand new units for the Vampire Coast. So everyone can like be excited. That I think could work out quite well and probably better because it would incentivize you, 1, to play with Nagash, to buy Nagash and play with him and so on. But 2, it's like, oh well, now I can go back to a Tomb King campaign with some new units, Vampire Coast. It's been a while since I've had anything, and really it's going to be, this is the only way that they can get something, I think. Right? They want an army book, they had a supplement, and even then a lot of stuff had to be made up for that. Hell, a lot of Vampire Count stuff had to be moved over just to kind of flesh it out a little bit. The thing is, I'm leaning towards it's like likely we can get another Tomb King DLC properly now, since Creative Assembly have announced the Water Elementals. They kind of look like how like Tomb King swarms can be, like Tomb Swarms, right? It would be cool. Like, this is the new Tomb Swarms, by the way, the stuff that you can get in the tabletop now thanks to the resin casts and the old world and stuff. Still the same unit, so it's not an old world unit, it's just an interpretation. I think it's probably going to be harder for Creative Assembly to find the units that are going to work in a DLC like this than the character themselves. Like, maybe I'm kind of on the ball here with what they want to do, maybe it's just something completely different. As long as it's got that feel like you are the Lord of Undeath, right? There's stuff like, obviously, magic that would come in with the unique spell lore that Nagash had, which was pretty ridiculous, I'm not going to lie, on the tabletop. But I think units are the big thing here, because I think units sell DLC just as much as a character does. If you've got some very cool units, you get really excited about them. Gorbad, for example. I don't really like Gorbad as a character too well, but Mangler Squigs and stuff like that, super freaking cool, dude. Skulltaker, cool character, but I was really, really into the Wrathmongers and Skull Reapers because I loved them on the tabletop. It's a shame we can't use them in the old world because apparently that's just Games Workshop's way of saying like, no, they're just Age of Sigmar now, despite the fact that they've already existed in the lore. But I'm not going into that tangent. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. I know Nagash is a hot topic and everyone's got their own interpretation. I just want to put it in mind there, throw out some ideas. I am trying to get back into daily content. I had to miss yesterday, but that's because I've been sorting out some paperwork. As you guys are aware, I am trying to move to a different country and it's becoming a problem. There's just a lot of delays, there's a lot of paperwork. I'm trying to like prepare my Warhammer minis for transport and so on, which takes a while. I have to magnetize everything to make sure it's safe and nothing gets destroyed. It's the perfect time right now, Total War's being quiet, so I'm trying to get that out of the way before, you know, Tides of Torment kicks up, or hopefully I'll be done and moved before, you know, whatever CA has planned for their big reveal show thing. And just to give you an example on just how much this move is being a pain, I am slowly filling up these boxes, as you can see. The ones that actually have the tops on is because they're done with my painted miniatures, because I have a lot of stuff, man. I've been in the hobby for a long time. I'm trying to make sure that that gets done well. Obviously my cats also, because I want to take my pets with me, right? I want to be able to make sure that I can provide for them, and it takes a while. It's the whole rabies shot and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of silly. But yeah, that's a lot of crap. Like, I haven't even done my Skaven yet. You can imagine it's a panic. And a big thank you once again to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring this video. You can check out the game in the link in the description below, or with the QR code on screen right now. Alongside that, a special code, SEPTHELLO, which gives you 50 Blackstones and 20 energy.